So I think my first sense is you never give up on your dreams. I mean, I always knew that I wanted to be a human rights lawyer, and so I went to university and to law school, as you indicated earlier, to do that. I never gave up on that for one single minute. If anything, it became more of a drive for me to really be that lawyer that reaches out to people that are excluded. So I think that that's one. Don't ever give up on your dreams.
So, what has been some of the most helpful tools that have led to your success and that you believe can also help other individuals with disabilities, whether that be women, girls with disabilities, or more broadly, the 1 billion people that are living with disabilities today? I think by any standards measurements, you are considered a very successful person, and so I would like you to share your wisdom.
So I think my first sense is you never give up on your dreams. I mean, I always knew that I wanted to be a human rights lawyer, and so I went to university and to law school, as you indicated earlier, to do that. I never gave up on that for one single minute. If anything, it became more of a drive for me to really be that lawyer that reaches out to people that are excluded. So I think that that's one. Don't ever give up on your dreams. I think the other one is to be to be current in terms of what's happening in your space. If you're an architect, you've got to be cutting edge. If you're a physician, you need to know what's going on in terms of new medical research. If you're a human rights lawyer, you need to be at the front of what's happening in the human rights sphere. And so, I read a lot. I try to keep myself super current with trends in human rights, trends within development. But I think, really, it's also about having a level of confidence, a strong level of confidence, particularly for persons with disabilities, to be that to be able to be that voice, to speak out for yourself, to be able to say, no, that is not acceptable. However, this is what you should do. And I think that's an important point when you think about advocacy. It can't just be saying, don't do that, don't call me this, don't do this, but use it as a moment to also empower other people and teach other people what the right way is. That said, I also recognize that that can be extremely exhausting because I feel like we expend a huge amount of time telling other, non-disabled people what they need to do or how they need to act or what is appropriate and what's not appropriate. Like, maybe you shouldn't hang your handbag on my chair. That's really inappropriate. But, somebody has to do it. And so I think we all have a role to make society a lot more conscious of what is acceptable and how we can all live together in a way that's more respectful.
Um, what do you think people's fears are towards disability? I know that compared to other movements, the disability movement has progressed a bit slower. And in one of your conferences, you were talking about people's fears towards disability, and how can we draw out those fears and start moving things forward in a speedier fashion?
In the developed world, we also see prejudice and stigma towards persons with disabilities. And it might not be in this case that we're thinking about witchcraft and bad karma, but we might be thinking about We still have a very welfare perspective, a very medicalized perspective of persons with disabilities, where we don't think people with disabilities can do certain things. So it's still the charity model. It's still the pity model. It's still, why do you want to be fly? Why would you want to be fly and be hip? You're disabled. So again, it's a way of keeping people excluded. So to do that, I think it's really important that we begin to look at more representation of persons with disabilities in the arts, in music, in on television, in the media, in professional positions, so that you begin to break down these norms, these social norms, and you begin to erase this kind of subliminal fear that a lot of people, I think, they subconsciously have. And people, I've had people say to me, "Oh my goodness, it must be so terrible being in a wheelchair." I'm like, not really. I mean, so I mean, there has to be, that people have to be enlightened about this. And so again, this is a responsibility that falls in part, not exclusively, on persons with disabilities and their advocacy groups, to make sure that these types of perceptions, stereotypes, and norms are being broken down. And it's not easy, because it really requires people making big attitudinal shifts.